and welcome to ETCSEE 2022. I am joined here today by Gottfried Steiner, the CEO of Central European Gas Hub. Thank you for joining us.
Well, thank you for inviting me.
So I would like to ask you, I'm very interested in the situation in Central and Southeastern also Europe. How do you see the future for the markets here, for the markets there? Also considering the adversities that we have faced lately.
So the markets the gas markets in Central and Eastern Europe still differ quite a lot from the markets which we are known in Western Europe. Mm-hmm. So there's less liquidity, there's less competition, but in terms of the gas market, there's still a further potential to develop. So it's a very different setting, I have to say, than what we see in Western Europe. For example, in Romania, there's a very large gas discovery to be developed. Okay. So Romania will be a very large gas-producing country by 2026, which will have an impact, of course, on the development of the gas markets and so on. So considering now the war in the Ukraine and the related security of supply issues with regards to Russian gas, this region is a bit different. You have the import routes from the south, mm-hmm. You have potential domestic supply, so it's a bit different than actually what you see with the other European countries. Yeah,
but would you say that we are a little bit behind in Central and Eastern Europe compared to the West when we talk about infrastructure, or we are more or less same levels?
They have developed quite significant infrastructure in the past years. Mm-hmm. Some of them are connected with diversification. The Brewer pipeline from Bulgaria, Romania, Hungary, not yet to Austria in terms of gas supply flows. And then they have this Russian pipeline, the Trans-Balkan pipeline via Serbia to Hungary. So there is a bit done in terms of diversification and a bit done with regards to route diversification of Russian gas into this area. Yeah. But in this situation, this is both luck and burden.
I understand, but I think that the idea in general, including the gas markets, is to try to relieve ourselves, let's say, from Russia a little bit and from Russian gas, Russian oil, etc. So the pipeline that comes from Russia perhaps should be, let's say, replaced by something that comes, the LNG that comes from Turkey, Greece, or even Israel.
I think the key issue now, what the European Union is putting forward with this Repower EU, is to reduce the dependency on Russian gas. Yeah. And here actually the dependency is different from country to country. Spain doesn't care at all.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
While Austria, where I am from, or Hungary, or Slovakia, or Czech Republic, even and further south, they are more exposed to certain Russian supply curtailments, and that's why it's important to balance this. Balance this and to have a balanced view on that.
Exactly. So is it safe to assume that you do agree with the opinion that says that we really need to see this Russian situation a little bit at a different country at a time to see how they're responding to the situation? So it's not, let's say, a solution, a holistic solution for everybody, but it needs to be ad hoc and it needs to be.
Yes, but I think this is well balanced. This Repower EU plan takes care about this. It doesn't say you have to buy this, which is impossible, I would say. But still, we have to be very aware. I mean, we are in times of a war. When in times of the war, anything can happen, and you see this reflected in the uncertainties, in the price levels, and in this reaction towards a Russian gas supply country by country. So this is an extreme situation. We have never been in this situation. Yeah. And hopefully we will never be in this situation again.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with you. But since we are in this situation, as we said, and we have stored, let's say, gas, we have some supplies. So I would like to ask you, in your expert opinion, are we going to make the winter if this continues like that with the gas supplies that we currently have?
So I think the good news is that we have already recovered on a European level all the gas stocks to 50%. So there was a steep curve in terms of filling from around a filling level of 20% by the end of the winter now to 50%. And if this continues in this pace, we should be well off.
Okay, that is really good to hear. I'm sure that our viewers will be very happy to hear that. So all in all, would you say that we are in a good level for the near future at least, and if this war continues a little bit more?
Good level. So I think we have to be aware that we are in an extreme situation.
Yes.
We have prices around 100 euros per megawatt hours. We have extreme volatility in terms of prices up and down on all the commodities, especially gas and electricity. We are in a very high price environment for commodities overall, so it's not a good situation, right? But I think in terms of security of supply for the coming winter, it seems well on track.
Okay.
But it is a war, right? We don't know what's happening.
Of course, we don't know, but what you're saying that we are well on track is already quite optimistic, quite, let's say, let's stay with this, because it's a nice point. Since you mentioned prices, do you think that subsidies from the various states are the solution, part of the solution, or we need to do more? Because there are some countries, and Greece, where I come from, for example, it is already quite a huge problem. Some households cannot actually afford gas anymore, although they did change from electricity to gas, because some years ago it was supposed to be the cheaper solution. So what would you say? How would you advise, let's say, governments?
So I think what you're mentioning in terms of levy and support to households, that's the most straightforward, that's the most effective, immediate solution which you have. So no doubt about this. The second thing is that the Commission came forward with this toolbox of what states can actually do in order to offset these high commodity prices on every level. And also here there are different tools, and I think the one which you're mentioning is the one which is most effective. What we see as a greater problem is the grip on market interventions, like what's planned in Spain, for example, that they kept the prices for gas-fired power plants in order to subsidize the power price. What you have here is an effect actually that you increase the level of gas demand by artificially keeping gas prices low, and therefore you don't do anything good for the market. So what we would not advise is to kind of distort the market functioning, as with this high gas price level, this high level, there's a certain reason for this. And the reason will be accommodated and will hopefully result in the right signals which is coming for this. So in terms of the households and the vulnerable customers, you need to do what you actually mentioned in order to help them and support them. But what we would not advise is to do any kind of populistic market intervention. Absolutely.
My last question is about this new platform you are working on, the green gas platform. Can you please explain a little bit what it is, main focus points?
So, not only because of security of supply and with regards to the Russian situation and Repower EU, but also before in terms of the energy transition, it is clear we have to diversify the gas and bring more biomethane, biogas into this energy mix. This is right now on a very small level. Production is small, and what is also important to grow this production is actually that there's trading possible, that you can hand over the gas, that you have right price signals, that you can develop a market for this biomethane. And here we try to give a support in order to have an initial platform, the first one of this kind, in order to support transparency and in order to facilitate trading, which is actually not there yet. So this was the idea about this green gas platform in order to support the market at a very early stage in its development.
So you mentioned that trading between countries, I assume also, needs support. Can you please elaborate a little bit on that? I thought that the levels of trading, gas trading on European level are quite good.
Yes, for gas, for natural gas, but not for biomethane.
Not for biomethane, okay.
So for biomethane, what you do is you produce biomethane, you inject it in the grid, and then it's part of the natural gas. So what you create then are guarantees of origin, which entitles you of the ownership of this green gas. And this needs to be handed over, and that's a very difficult process. And that's in terms of regulations and institutions, it's not clear yet. You don't have a European framework for it, you don't have standard contracts for it, which are widely used, and the regulation and the institutional setup differs from country to country. So here we are in a very early stage of the market development, and this is something where we would like to support, and this was the idea of this green gas platform.
To instigate the dialogue and get things started. And which would be the first action points, let's say?
To have a common regulatory institutional framework within the European countries, and that's not there yet.
Yeah, and that will take some time, I assume.
Maybe in this environment they will speed up, but it's not from today to tomorrow, at least a few months, I would say.
Okay. Thank you very much for this conversation, and I hope you had fun, as I did.